behind the scenes like never before. Backstage Brew.
Yes, team, Backstage Brew is back. We're at the Courtyard Theatre today, where we are chatting to the cast and crew of Punchy, the musical. They're literally rehearsing in there right now. We're going to chat to them in the bar. It's very busy. There's the poster. It's going to be a good laugh.
Did you see her come on my way? Did you see her? Tell me, what did she say? Have you the strength to look regret in the face and burn it down with unyielding faith?
Right, we are joined by the man himself. It's been a very busy day for you today. The soundtrack is out, and Jack, welcome to Backstage Brew. Let's talk brews first. What do you have, whether you're writing, I suppose before you're performing, like maybe coffee's not the best choice, but let's say you were like getting up first thing in the morning, you're about to have a great day of kind of composing music. What would you go for?
Well, if it's first thing in the morning, yeah, it is a coffee at the moment because this has been a real hard slog, you know. Anything of real meaning and value to you, you know, it requires you to show up in your full authenticity and, you know, as a result, you face some challenges on the way. So I need a strong coffee in the morning for sure. If we're talking either before a rehearsal or, you know, again, even before a gig, you know, a cheeky little scotch will go down quite well.
Right, so on the wonderful Backstage Brew is the wonderful Philip, who's playing Manny in the brilliant Punchy the musical. Let's start off with the brew part of things. If you could have a brew like backstage or in the first thing in the morning when you're starting the day off, what would you go for? Would you be like a cappuccino kind of guy, or are you like standard English breakfast tea?
Oh, no, my day doesn't start until I've had a very strong Americano with hot milk.
So let's talk soundtrack then, because it is out today, all very exciting. There's some unbelievable tracks, and you've combined so many genres. Was that kind of like a concept that you had from the start, or did you, as you were going along, think, oh, I'm going to throw in a bit of pop here because that's going to sound really cool and it's kind of like an eclectic mix? Or did you kind of just figure it out along the way when you were writing each individual track?
It's really, I think, probably unlike any musical that's ever been created in the traditional sense of like how one might go about writing a musical. So for me, I have to say, first and foremost, I had no intention to write a musical. So I'm a rock soul artist, or many different genres that I write in, and over the last decade, these have been little chapters throughout my life, and I've always explored many different genres, and I've never really found a home in any of them. Yeah. And so some of these experiments, you know, have either left me blissed out or feeling quietly dissatisfied each time. And inevitably, these songs suddenly wrap themselves around a story that my mum told me from her childhood, and it just sort of was like a boom, light bulb moment. And she grew up in Islington in the time that the show is set, in the 50s. Obviously she was a young girl then, and it's sort of, yes, like I say, she told me the story of the real Punchy, who we don't know anything about. And it's quite a tragic story. One day on the balcony of where my mum grew up in her block of flats, big ruckus breaks out. Everyone sort of pops their head down below, and you know what's going on. And you know, we're not sure whether the real Punchy maybe had mental health challenges. And you know, at the time, I mean, even now, there's no provision for anything like that in terms of real resources behind it. And so anyway, he has a fight with his old man, and he flees, and it's the last time that he was ever seen. And that really sort of, you know, struck a chord with me. And I just sort of thought to myself, okay, you know, there's a seed there. And suddenly, when I started to bring the story of what my mum had told me, and then I started to build that out, and then, you know, working alongside Richard to honour his ego-soul dynamics in terms of his non-fiction work, ineffably, there were songs from every chapter of my life that I thought, hang on, that would fit there, that would fit there. And okay, you know, there was some movement and some, you know, chopping it up. And Tiffany King, the director of our piece, has been instrumental actually in really, like, just fine-tuning some of you know, the story in that sense to make the music work. And yeah, all those genres, like I say, that I felt I didn't really have a home, all of a sudden, unintentionally, I've just got this really powerful home. And that's where we are with it.
So let's talk about your character, Manny, who's a brilliant part of the piece. How's the process been for you? Because the whole concept, we were just saying, is really interesting, especially from an actor's point of view, with the ego and soul. They're two kind of characters that we all have, especially with like the industry that we're in, with imposter syndrome and with kind of like questioning yourself, second guessing yourself. And that's kind of a very large part of this piece as well. So how do you fit into that, and how's it been exploring those kind of two sides?
So, so the premise is that Punchy, the main character, who is undergoing some issues in his life, some problems in his life at the time, we see him in his world, and he's been influenced by his soul and his ego. And within the story, there are soul characters who kind of guide him in a soulful way through his journey, and there are egotistical characters that kind of fuel his ego. And Manny is one of the soul characters, and it's Manny, in fact, that brings about the change in Punchy.
The whole storyline as well is set in kind of like 1950s Britain, kind of Islington, not too far away from here, really. And it's a really fascinating part of history, I think. I think it's a brilliant time period. So as an actor, have you had like a research like practice to like kind of figure out more about that kind of time period and how your character would fit into that time period and kind of how they'd act? Because there's a complete different like type of person, I suppose, in terms of like how people held their postures, how people interacted with each other. It kind of is a different world, really, to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think that's one of the real things that Tiffany King, the director, has tried to establish here, is kind of the movement language of the piece and of each individual character, and then trying to layer that into that kind of the historical context of the piece. I mean, Manny's character, he's Jewish, and he's early 50s. We've been through the war, and he's seen some traumatic things during that time, which is a part of his story that he relates to Punchy. There's been quite a lot of backstory done on that.
So you've got a brilliant story. You've got the ego and soul thing we talked about there, and obviously the setting itself is completely different. Did you think when you were writing any of the music, obviously I know you wrote a lot of it first, but did you ever think about kind of like tweaking any of it to make it fit with the time period, or did you think, no, actually I quite like the fact that it kind of like is a little bit juxtaposed to that and it is more modern?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, maybe call me cynical, but and probably it certainly is out of date. I know modern musicals have moved on a lot, and but as I say, I was always put off by sort of the thought of jazz hands and glitter. So I wanted it to be like if we do it, let's have an on-stage band, let's set it in the pub, and let's make it about like the music keeps its integrity, because the songs started, like I say, their life in. People love to categorise it. For me, it's just music,
I mean, it is just the most exciting new musical. It's brand new as well, which is like great. First time anyone's going to get to see it. I've listened to the soundtrack today and again. It's just such an amazing mix of different types of music, but also like so many brilliant messages as well. And like Jack, you were saying, he's obviously written the soundtrack. It's like some of the work that's gone into that is like amazing, and like that's kind of a gift to be able to play with that throughout the piece as well. How is it doing it on stage? How's it going to be for the audience? Because I'm sure people are watching this going, I might go and watch this. This seems quite cool. Like, how does the soundtrack add to the whole piece?
The thing with this, the way I explain it to people often is that, Peaky Blinders, set very clearly in a time period because it looks like it, but the music's got nothing to do with that time period. That's kind of the Punchy vibe. It's 1950s Britain, but with this soundtrack that comes from wherever. It's not related to 1950s. And it's just really joyful to kind of place that there but have it juxtaposed against kind of the setting that we're in. And I think that where we've been really, really lucky is Tiffany King, who's not only a really, really good director, but in terms of her movement and choreography, is kind of sensitive to the actors she's got in the room, as well as kind of creating a world. And I think one of the great joys of working on a new piece is that you are creating this for the first time. And that's quite, as an actor, that's quite a challenge, but equally it's quite liberating because you're not having to look back and go, well, how did, so-and-so played it 20 years ago or 5 years ago. How did they do it? Maybe I should do a bit of that. You think, actually, I don't need to worry about any of that because we can just create our own world and get on with it.
I love the fact that you're letting it live just how it lives, especially on stage, because it's almost to a certain extent. I mean, the band is going to be incredible. Setting a pub is going to be the most insane atmosphere, but also like it's bordering on like play with music to a certain extent. So it's more real. It's more in the moment.
It's so strange that you say that because for so long I just kept calling it a play with music, and then of course you say that, and then so someone says, "You mean a musical?" And you say, "Yeah, okay," because at the end of the day, okay, it's a story with music. So yeah, that always makes me laugh. But yeah, you're right. It is very juxtaposed, and I think even Phil had given the reference of, there are TV shows that do that a lot, and I sort of quite like the almost filmic elements of what we're doing with the music in 100%. This show. Yeah.
So how's it been working with the cast and the director then? Because that's your music taken to a whole new level. I mean, the cast are brilliant. You've got some amazing people in the team. Director is unbelievable. It's going to be a phenomenal show, and it must have been really weird, especially when you were getting the cast and team together to kind of let the music out to a certain extent.
Well, I think first and foremost I should say that there's a real gift in the writing, because although I wrote the story, Kevin McMahon has written the script, and you can't do anything unless you have a really solid book. And he's an absolute master craftsman, very humble man, and has produced dialogue that I think for an actor can just, I'm not an actor myself, but it's a dream. I see the joy and the enthusiasm in the room. And it's a script that will make you laugh. We don't take ourselves too seriously with the show. There's no pulpit, there's no preachiness. Yeah, we are. We're all souls. We have an ego, and that's the end of it. That's how we are as human beings. It's how we're made.
So where can people get tickets and stuff if they want to come watch it? All that kind of fun jazz. Social media. Where are you as well, so people can find you and find the soundtrack if they want to listen to it and download it and drive home after the show listening to it as well?
Yeah, exactly. So you can follow me at Jack Terroni, but the show, most importantly, is at Punchy the Musical, and that's across all social media handles. And then please come and see it. You're going to have a wild and raucous night, and you can book tickets from punchythemusical.com.
There you go, Jack. Pleasure chatting to you. I'm going to go and learn all of the words to it now so I can sing along when I come and watch it. But good luck with the rest of rehearsals, and I can't wait to see it when it goes up.
Oh, God bless. Thank you, mate.
I was never alone. Thank you for saving my life tonight. I don't know what else to say. Thank you. I won't give up.
Backstage Brew with Mark Jarvis.